To the extent that we live our lives in a manner that is consistent with the truth in our heart, we thrive.
Welcome to the Meyer Clinics podcast, and you just heard a quote from one of your hosts, Dr. Lisa Day. Join our licensed clinical professionals from various backgrounds as they discuss fascinating mental health topics with a wide range of guests. Meyer Clinics is a Christian counseling organization with multiple clinics nationwide dedicated to treating the whole person, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Welcome to our listening family. We thank you for joining us. Hi, listeners. Thanks for tuning in. We have the wonderful Dr. Lisa Day with us. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Kristin.
All right. So, Lisa, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, today I want to talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is, basically it's a motivational theory, of how the psychology of how we operate. And I want to talk about how Maslow's hierarchy of needs relates to COVID. And, when I think of this, when we first headed into this, for me, March 13th is the date. For others, it was sooner. We thought it was a sprint, right? We're thinking 2 weeks, we can get through this. And then, March ends, April ends, and here we are. The sprint has turned into a marathon. And now the marathon has turned into an endurance race, right?
Right.
And really believing that we're at a position now of needing to focus on adaptation to the new norms. And not succumbing to that our life is always going to be terrible. But when we're 4 months into something, it's no longer grinning and bearing it. And it's no longer getting through. Yeah.
And new way of being.
Yeah. And, one of the things, and you and I have talked about this in previous shows, with the cortisol being the fight, flight, or freeze, which is what I see most often. What I really am seeing is motivation in the form of molasses, right? And it's a strange thing. It's that we have all kinds of things that we know we could do or should do with these extra time or with the new limitations. And yet the way I was describing it previously was we're frozen. And so it really got me thinking about, what is it that motivates us? And I love Abraham Maslow's work on the hierarchy of needs. And what I want to do is look at those hierarchy of needs as they relate to COVID. And then most importantly, look at where we can begin to take action in that theory of adaptation to the new norm, so that not only can we navigate through this, but potentially come out on the other side greater, stronger, and more self-actualized.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've said this with some of our other podcasters on the network and my attorney and a few other people, those of us who've dealt with early childhood trauma, we're made for this moment in time.
Right.
Those of us who've been in therapy, we've done the introspection and all of that. Like, this is stressful, but it's not new to us to be in this kind of, traumatizing situation going on.
No, I think you're far more resilient, and I think you have far greater skills to navigate it. What's interesting is what I'd like to do is just kind of roughly go through the hierarchy, and then kind of dissect it. Because the interesting thing with this, and I definitely think of people like yourself and others who have had challenges with mental health issues or trauma, you've needed to learn how to operate in less than ideal situations. And with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he talks about five levels. He talks about the most foundational level is that of our physiological needs, and that's just what it sounds like. It's food, it's water, it's warmth, and then according to Maslow, our baseline needs need to be met in order to have motivation to go higher up on this hierarchy. And so, our bare essentials of food, water, and warmth and protection with the coronavirus have been rocked. The next level is safety and security needs. And that's, exactly what it sounds like. It's that we're secure, we're safe, we have a roof over our head, we're not in danger of being contaminated, if you will, or infected by a virus. And again, that's been significantly threatened with the coronavirus. The next level is belongingness connection, attachment, community, friendships, intimate relationships, and friends. And then, so if our physiological needs are met, we can then address our safety needs, and then we can address our sense of belonging or our social connection. And then if those are met, then we can focus on our esteem, our self-esteem, how we perceive ourselves and how we perceive others who perceive us. And then on the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is self-actualization. And, during these times, and golly, there's multiple factors that address it. But one of the things that I observe is that the virus has absolutely universally brought us all, back down, to those bottom two tiers. Prior to Corona, I wasn't worried about, having food and water. And yet,
Right.
our meat plants are being shut down. Animals are being destroyed. Can you get to the store to get water? And some of that has settled out, but certainly out of the gate, our baseline level of functioning has been hugely rocked, and has put us all on even ground. We have threats to our health. It's removed our sense of safety and security. I think that's one of the things that I see so much in my practice is people anxiety, is just going through
Right.
the roof. And so when we look at Maslow's hierarchy, of needs, when those first two levels or the bottom two levels, have been rocked, it debilitates our higher level tier activity. It prevents us from thinking about self-esteem. I don't know if you've experienced this, Kristin, but I know that my creative juju juice, even for writing podcasts and writing articles, which I do all the time, I've been fairly immobilized in it. And that's what, according to Maslow, that's what we're going to see, because our baseline physical needs and our safety and security is so rocked, our creative juices really become immobilized.
100%. Sorry. And Joe, you can edit this part out. My dogs are clicking around on the floor. So
well, their physiological needs are being met. Yeah.
Maybe we won't edit this out because
no. Our dogs are immune of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They are in heaven.
Yeah. They're very happy that so many people are working from home. Although some dogs are like, oh, get them out of here. I used to nap. I used to be able to get on the couch whenever I wanted. Come on, go back to work.
Oh yeah, no. My dogs are absolutely exhausted. You want to go for a car ride? They look at you and put their head back down. But I truly do believe that now our dogs are self-actualized because they've come to a place where they don't live solely for our attention. They're able to say no.
That is so perfect. Oh my gosh.
But anyway, I don't think it needs to be.
Anyway, we digress.
Anyway,
Yeah.
So when we look at the hierarchy of needs, and again, just for sake of review, physiological, safety, love and belonging, self-esteem, and self-actualization, in the big scheme of things, we're very powerless in those first two tiers. And basically, that's where the government, has stepped in and provided, obviously they provided the largest stimulus package in human history. But even with the $1 trillion, there's still a lot of instability. But if we look at the physical availability of food, water, and shelter, and we look at safety and stability, and that's not only the stimulus packages and trying to put restrictions on our travel, on wearing. I mean, in Haley, yesterday we just got a citywide ordinance that if you don't wear a mask in a public place, you'll get a $100 fine. And so, if we think about the hierarchy of needs, the government is intervening at those, or trying to intervene at those two basic levels where we are essentially powerless, with all the restrictions on our physiological and in our safety and security. But that being said, when the riots started on top of the COVID, it just further challenges our sense of safety and security.
It's a little.
And so, sorry.
I was just saying it's a little bizarre too, because you kind of go back and forth between, it's so human to just sort of, you have a few good days where you're distracted by whatever is going on in just your daily life, and you sort of forget, you get a little bit of, amnesia, or you're a bit anesthetized, not worried about all this other stuff. And then boom, some other thing happens in the news or whatever, and then you're right back in it again. And you go, you didn't want to feel that panic again. Oh no, what's happening? But it's that thing where we forget. It's been a good lesson for me to go, oh, right. It is our natural tendency to want to just go back to everything is just fine. Nothing really bad is happening out there, or not bad is a bad word to use, but there isn't stress out there. You want to go and you want to live there. And that isn't reality.
It isn't. And for those of us who really locked down in quarantine, we really feel like we got it. We were through it. Right.
Right.
And then the riots start. And it's very difficult to think about, having a yard party with friends when you are worried about getting COVID and ending up on a ventilator. Right. And that's how that hierarchy of needs works. I mean, I know here in our town, we were ahead of the COVID, and we've all gone back to work as normal. And, just this morning before I came into the podcast, my older daughter said, I'm not going to work today. I have a cold. And she's like, this sore throat came on sudden. My head is congested. Her eyes are bloodshot red. I need to lay down and go to sleep. And that does trigger that, oh goodness, is this a common cold or is this something worse? And so not so concerned about who I'm giving to this afternoon in a self-actualized way when my baby might be threatened with illness. So yeah, we're bouncing all over the place. But one of the things that I really want to emphasize in this, in exploring it, is that there is so much that we're powerless over with regard to those first tiers. And that's where we're really seeing the government attempt to and try to address reestablishing our baseline physiological needs and our baseline level of safety and security, through masks, through restricting travel, through curfews and social distancing. And all of that can feel disempowering. But really what I want to do is I want to invite us to look at, there are areas that we as individuals can intervene and can become a part of it. And those would be the higher tier levels. And so if we hope or trust or cross our fingers that the government can take care of the baseline physiological needs and the safety and security needs, we're then at the next level, of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And that's a level of love and a level of belonging. That's where we, get that sense of connection, interpersonal relationships, and how we motivate behavior there. And this is where I invite us to explore the opportunity to rebuild, the opportunity to equalize. We've been all put on the same level. This disease is not biased. It's not racist.
Right.
We've all been put on an even playing ground. And I really do see this as an opportunity for all of us to grow, and for the entire country to reset. And, one of the things I talk about with my clients is that, while social distancing is what's required, social distancing is different from physical distancing. And so, making efforts to physically distance, but to socially maintain and even be able to deepen, our relationships, and to build and to reach out and to connect. Meaning there's little we can do with the COVID numbers. There's little we can do individually with regard to securing safety and security, but we can reach out to other people. We can be loving. We can be kind. We can be compassionate. We can look at that evening playing field and reach out to people and to grow our relationships. I mean, just like when you and I got on here today, we're like, oh, let's touch base offline. We got to catch up. Yeah.
Right. It makes me think too, it's been really good for me and several of my friends in terms of setting boundaries. It's, this is your life. This is life and death. I had someone the other day that I'd never met before, that I went to speak to because a friend asked me, who was nervous about speaking to this person, and they thought it was funny. It was a big guy, 6'5" or something, big man. And I put on a mask, of course. It was a business thing, but I put on a mask and I go to meet this person and they want to shake my hand. And I said, no, it's okay. We don't need to do that. And the guy said, well, do you have a wicked sense of humor? And I said, I don't know. Depends on who's delivering the humor. And so he reaches over to me and he grabs my ears. I mean, this happened so fast. He grabs my ears with his two hands and pretends and leans in like he's going to kiss me. And I have a mask on and he doesn't. And I went back to childhood when those kind of things happened to me and there was nothing I could do because I was a kid. These were big, powerful men, my father, whoever, and this guy's doing it to me now and I'm 50. And I immediately, without even thinking, put my arms up and went, no, this is not okay. Back
No.
off. And the guy goes, well, I told you, I asked you if you had a sense of humor. A typical manipulative predator trying to say, to set you up to feel bad for their bad behavior by asking me about the sense of humor ahead of doing something completely inappropriate. And I looked at him and said, that's such a predatory thing to do. Sorry, I'm not the person that's going to fall for that. And so, it was uncomfortable. I said, I'm done here. And I left. And what was interesting was later I went, good for me. Without this pandemic, I don't know that I would be tested in this way to prove to myself that, oh yeah, I got your back, girl. Meaning me.
Absolutely. And I think that that's just so profound, Kristin, because when you look at that, the level on Maslow's tier of love and belongingness, and being able to respect that every individual is going to have a different mindset with regard to their boundaries during this time. And he violated yours. And if we can take from that, the approach that I give and the approach that I teach, folks that I work with, is that we want to honor wherever you are on your journey with COVID. And there's no right or wrong. I don't think it's fair to mock people who are wearing a hazmat suit to the grocery store.
Right.
And I don't think it's, and I invite us not to judge or criticize those who are taking less aggressive measures. But the important thing is that we honor them. What are you comfortable with? And how can I meet you and connect with you with wherever you are? Meaning, in my practice, I've gone to a few people face to face. And I tell my clients before they come in, I said, I don't wear a mask during session because it interferes with my work. It's a personal thing. And so it's an enter at your own risk. You are welcome to be online. You're welcome to come in, and you're welcome to wear or not wear a mask. Whatever works for you, I will honor. And that's an area in this COVID. So while we're powerless over those first two tiers, we really can look at how are we creating that safety for connection, for attachment, and how in this situation that you described, we can use our boundaries to say, no, that's not okay. That's not okay. And call a stop on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think for quite a few people, I feel like for some people going through this, it's hard for everybody. And there are many of us, and it's hard in this respect too, but there are many of us who have done a lot of personal work, and we are being tested and we are passing the test. I feel like we are evolving from this and being more of who we are. And, like I said, the people that really, are shining through this because we've been through trauma. Doesn't mean it's easy. And I don't mean shining like, oh, just everything is la-di-da, traipsing through the field of daisies. It isn't like that. It's just more, I've had more self-esteem hits, more validation for who I am and who I've become. And so have my friends through this time, while I've seen other people through this time really struggling with being the worst I've ever seen them behave.
Hi, this is Dr. Paul Meyer of the Meyer Clinics. Our Christian counselors across the country have a goal of helping all those who come to us to become what God has called them to be. If you're in a situation where you're not at peace within yourself, or you just feel like there's joy that's missing in your life, we can come alongside to help you obtain peace and joy.
This message is sponsored by the Meyer Clinic Foundation, a nonprofit Christian counseling ministry. The number is 1-888-7-CLINIC, 1-888-7-CLINIC.
Well, and that's the whole point of my wanting to talk about this today, is that how can we really see this situation as an opportunity to grow, and understanding that our baseline needs are threatened. And so fear is involved. But I know that here, I hike on the weekends, and my daughter and I were hiking on Saturday, and it was interesting. Some people have masks, some people don't. And people with masks don't look at you, and they don't greet you. They don't say hello. And that's what we used to do. And so I just want to invite people to lean in, to be kind and respect everybody's, position, but to see this as an opportunity to grow, because a lot of people with the fear, they are isolating. They're not interacting. They're not even looking at people as they pass them on the trail, if they're even leaving their house. And so I invite us to look within ourselves of where can we grow with our no, no to self or no to other people, so that we can say yes comfortably.
Yeah, if anything, I work hard at being friendlier.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
and then
I want you to see me smile, see my eyes smiling underneath this mask, see
yes.
that I'm doing that. And I will say this, with everything else going on with, we did a show about the riots, and I work harder at being polite. I'm always polite, but I work much harder at being polite to anyone that's a minority. I feel
Oh,
like I want
huge.
you to know that I honor you, and I
Mhm.
honor, what you're going through, and we
Mhm.
hear you.
And I have love to share, love and acceptance. Yeah. Well, and you just mentioned something too that actually moves into the next tier of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that's the tier of esteem. You just said your esteem is really getting some boosts. And when you look at Maslow's hierarchy, he talks about two different kinds of esteem. Obviously, esteem for oneself, that's our dignity, our achievement, our independence. But we also have the desire for respect from other people. And it sounds to me like you said you're getting some good hits to your esteem. What were you experiencing there?
In terms of the good things I'm getting,
Yeah.
I mean, just that, oh my gosh, boy, do I have my back like I never have before. And this yesterday was when I watched the scenario with the guy, reaching for my face and me saying no. And then I watched my friend who didn't say no, didn't do anything. I wasn't angry with her, but I did have a moment. And it made me think of last year when I had some very unfortunate relationships with narcissists. It made me go, oh, this is what it was like for my colleagues and or friends to be around me who was not standing up for myself in those relationships, who was getting sucked into these relationships and causing people to spend money they didn't need to spend time that ended up being, quote unquote, wasted. I was putting people in danger in one way or another. Danger, not death danger, but danger
Mm-hmm.
of maybe their mental health or their finances or whatever because of my lack of having boundaries. And so I was able to look at my friend and see where she's at with that and go, oh, that's what that looked like. Okay, got it.
Well, and that's huge because, again, where do we have influence in this growth or motivational thing is that this is a wonderful opportunity, to move toward restoring self-respect and,
Yes.
and to take it to a higher level. And, as I mentioned, is self-esteem is really has the two components, one, esteem for self, and then the other, reputation or respect from others. And it's not in an egotistical way. It's that we want to be interacting with other people where it's validated, acknowledged, accepted. And
Right.
some things that we can do toward other people that will help build our esteem is with intent and mindfulness, very consciously be
Yes.
kind. Be kind. In its simplest sense. In all that I do, can I challenge myself to simply be kind? Because people with fear are irritable, agitated, annoyed, short-fused, cursing, shooting birds on the highway, cutting you off,
Right.
speeding to the merging lanes. It's kind of crazy. And so
Saying
can we
nasty things
challenge
to
ourselves
you.
to,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I've had just people that who knows how they would have been not in this, make some really biting, cutting remarks at other people as well as me, just because I happened to be standing behind them in line and they got irritated about something that had nothing to do with me, but I'm there, so they're gonna that on me.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
for me to absolutely be motivated to be kind in my response or to just ignore them, in no way. I mean, do I feel like fighting? Because no
right.
way, not with what's going on. Now, in my car, sometimes I'm like, listen, but that's in my car when I'm alone.
That's called venting. It's like journal writing.
Calling my friend, can you believe what just happened? But in the moment, my first reaction is to be safe for myself, uh,
Yeah.
and be kind and think what it could be, what could be possibly going on with this other person. So in that way, the validation of, oh gosh, I really am proving to myself that I will take care of myself. And I'm proving to myself that my instinct is to be a very kind person. That makes me feel good about myself too.
And that's the point of it, is that it feels good. And so when we're looking at building our own self-esteem in this time of challenge, being kind feels good. It builds it. We have a greater sense of self-esteem. And the other thing we can do is to focus on encouraging and complimenting rather than judging and criticizing. We want to encourage and compliment our friends, our family, our coworkers, our neighbors, to try to increase that love and increase that encouragement. Whereas with fear, I say to the extent that we have fear, we seek to control. And when we seek to control, that comes from a place of judgment and criticism. So lots more judgment and criticism with this COVID. And again, if with intent and mindfulness, if we can shift to being kind, if we can shift to being compassionate, if we can shift to encouraging others and being complimentary of others, it goes a huge distance. And really to be mindful. I teach this all the time in my practice anyway, but certainly now more than ever is the abandonment, challenging ourselves to abandon all judgment and criticism.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody, they're judging the government, they're judging the Lives Matter, we're judging the city ordinances, where, there's judgment and criticism.
Yes.
And we want to try to shift, because this is where we have power, guys. We can shift and choose compassion, and we can choose that kindness. And at the same time, in this, hierarchy of needs, the self-esteem level, you and I have talked a little bit about this, Kristin, we want some things that we can do for ourselves, not as much toward others, is to acknowledge that in these challenging times, we are not the best version of ourselves.
Right.
We're just not. Even though we strive that, we're not. And so can we be gracious, and acknowledge that we're not the best version of ourselves? And when we slip or snap or that comes out, I found myself, my children are adults. They're almost 20 and 22. And last week I was talking to them and I said, you guys, I have to apologize and ask you to call me out on this new behavior that I've developed of helicopter parenting. They're like, yeah, think, and I said, they're like, you track us on our phones, Mom. You've never done that. And I said, I'm not tracking you. I look and I feel comfortable and I know where you are. But that comes from the foundation of this pyramid being rocked, right? Yes. And so to have that grace for self and to say, I apologize and I own that, and I invite you to call me out on that, because that's not how I want to present, in relationship with you.
And I am now, and listeners of this show have heard me talking about my relationship with my mother, and we actually have a relationship now where we are speaking, we are involved in each other's lives. There has been, much forgiveness. There's been much of, I just want peace with everything that's going on right now. I really want peace, and that doesn't mean that I'm ignoring hurt, that I'm allowing hurtful things to happen, that I did anything wrong by dipping out previously. None of that. There's no shame or guilt, literally no shame or guilt at all in this whole thing. It's just, I choose to have a relationship. There's a pandemic going on, and I want, if at all possible, to have a healthy, loving relationship. Not that I want to make sure I say this too for anyone that's, decided that they need to dip out because the pandemic is making it worse for them. Do that. That's okay too. I am not saying that everybody needs to go forgive their mom.
Well, no, but what you are saying is, when in doubt, choose love.
Exactly. 100%.
In choosing love, that may be leaning toward a relationship, but when in choosing love may be leaning out, meaning love for self, that it's not right for me. But when in doubt, you're choosing love, not guilt, not obligation, not the book of shoulds, written by they.
Written by they.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Written by they. Well, and so, we can intervene in the love and belonging level. We can intervene, we can contribute, in the esteem level. And then the highest level on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, as we mentioned, is self-actualization, which really refers to maximizing, your personal potential, self-fulfillment, seeking personal growth or peak experiences. And in this time of a pandemic, if we can think of self-actualization as an opportunity to serve and an opportunity to contribute to the whole, that's where we can mobilize our resources. That's where we can be curious. How can I be a part of the overall good? Not get caught into the gossip, into the judging, into the criticizing, into the dissecting, into the very large TVs that have very skewed information reports that, are, I say united we stand, divided we fall. But if we
Right.
take this self-actualization challenge, how can I serve you? How can I be here for you? How can I be empathic and compassionate for the whole? And it's fun. It's fun when you give some thought to that, because it can be as little as, leaning over the fence to your neighbor and say, I know that you guys have some trips to the hospital. How can I help? How can I be here? Can water the yard, can let the dog out, can bring over some food. How can I help? And it doesn't need to be a huge, act of service. It can be the what I call the micro actions. We were talking about those in our last podcast.
And it's also okay. I mean, I've had with some neighbors that, they're good for a while and then they start trampling on your boundaries again. And it's also okay during this time to say, we've already discussed this. This is not okay with me. This behavior is not okay. And I need you to, back off again. Like, that is okay too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because that's just implementing, operational skills, to navigate the challenge. Yeah. And, I think so in my overall, kind of message here is that, while those two baseline functions, the safety and security and the physiological needs, have been massively annihilated, with COVID and then the subsequent fallouts with health and safety and rioting. If we can choose to not be a victim of this adaptation challenge, but instead to be an active participant, there are areas where we can be actively contributing. We can invest in growing our relationships, especially in this leveled playing field. How can I reach out, even if it's a minor reaching out, a hello in a grocery store, or how can I help, or can I be there for you? But we have room to be focused on our own personal growth and then therefore our collective growth by consciously investing in those, acts of being kind, being graceful towards self and others, abandoning judgment and criticism, acknowledging that social distance and physical distance are two different things, not letting go of that core human need for connection and attachment to others. And then how to take it another level. How might I serve you is in my opinion, the highest self-actualization question you can ask yourself. And when we're threatened, when those lower tiers are threatened, we go into self-preservation. We're going to take care of our own. We hunker down. And, now that we're seeing some stability in that area, though we're in here for the long haul, not the sprint, not the marathon, we're now in the endurance, challenge. How can I adapt to this, but not only adapt, but seek it as an opportunity to grow in the areas that I can grow? It's an invitation.
It's been a fascinating journey. And the interesting part is that we are nowhere near the end of this journey.
No, we really are not near the end of this journey. And so again, if we were just to summarize it, rather than be stuck in the fight or flight or the fear or being tempted to move into a victim dynamic, really want to challenge ourselves and challenge others for it to be an opportunity to grow. And the best way to challenge others is to model it.
Yes.
To bring those contributions that we talked about on a regular basis. And in order to do that, it does require a great deal of self-care. So not to minimize that it's the basis of being able to contribute, to belongingness, esteem, and self-actualization is that self-care is of utmost concern.
Absolutely. That's probably been the biggest lesson for me is taking self-care days without any guilt and shame around them. Where maybe last year I did a lot of self-care, but I had a lot of guilt around doing that. And this year with everything going on, I'm like, I'm taking the day and I have no guilt about it. So,
well, you're regarding your needs and wants. Yeah,
yes.
You're regarding your needs and wants, which is awesome. Yeah. And that's it. Just a challenge, just an invitation, both for ourselves and others. Yeah, to invest in this opportunity to grow.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Lisa Day. I love this topic. I miss doing shows with you, and I'm so glad that we took the time to do this one today, because I know that you are, just in case listeners you didn't know, most counselors, mental health counselors of any kind, are on overload with the number of people having issues for obvious reasons. So I
Mhm.
appreciate you taking the time to do this when I know that you are seeing more clients than you saw certainly before the pandemic.
Well, and on that note, it's important that we validate that within ourselves. So even in Maslow's self-esteem, some people are quick to judge themselves that they're having a hard time and needing help, but acknowledging that you need help and taking the steps to reach out will build a sense of self-esteem as well. So absolutely, don't hesitate to reach out. While I'm working hard, there's lots of us. We're here to help.
Exactly. The mental health profession is certainly stocked up and ready for any kind of a pandemic that's coming. Just remember that they are people too. So as you're receiving, the mental health care that you need, the person that's helping deliver it is also going through their own stuff. So thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next episode of Meyer Clinic's podcast. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Tune in next time for another engaging discussion on relevant mental health topics. If you have any questions about Meyer Clinics, please visit our website at meyerclinics.com. That's MEIER clinics.com, or call us at 888-7-CLINIC. Don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or any of your favorite podcast apps. And please note that we are a member of and produced by Mental Health News Radio Network, MHNRnetwork.com.